Andy, thank you for joining me.
Well, I would say I've seen all the others saying it's great to be here. I'm terrified to be here. I've seen all the rest of the people you've interviewed. They're amazing.
But so are you. And I always say I'm looking forward to the conversation, but I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Partly because we've got to know each other well, and there's all sorts of conversations we're going to bring into filming today. But let's start with, who is Andy Kirk?
Yeah, again, I tried to revise this question a little bit. I asked my daughters what on earth would they say. They said, well, just say that you're a Leeds fan and that'll do. And yeah, which I am. I don't know. Who am I? I am someone...
Hence the croaky voice.
Hence the croaky voice for listeners. I've been celebrating, over-indexing on Leeds United's promotion. Who am I? I am just someone who is desperate to make it count, to make whatever I'm involved in count. So yes, I'm a father, most importantly to 3 fantastic daughters. I'm a husband to an amazing, long-standing, suffering wife. I'm a great supporter of Leeds United. And then in my day job that takes over my life is I'm Chief Executive of the Centre for Social Justice, where we are desperate to make it count for those that are relying on us. We try and take the voices of those most struggling in this country and try and drive ideas towards helping them be all that they're meant to be into government and into wider culture.
There's so much passion and purpose in everything you said there. We're aligned so much on a mission basis, and also dads to daughters, right? That's probably why we get on so well. Where has that passion come for trying to make a difference? Was that through your upbringing or early influences?
I have no idea. I grew up in Leeds. I kind of had an amazing family, mother and father who just loved me. I think that's one of the key things. I've kind of felt loved into being able to be free and go after stuff in lots of ways. And then I kind of ended up not feeling kind of that content with the normal cycle of life. You get to school, you get shipped to university, whether or not you want to go or not. Little political statement there. You end up thinking about what your next kind of job is, and you're in the rat race of life. And there was always something that slightly wanted to do a bit different, but I can't say I had a grand plan. And then we had a bit of tragedy that hit the family. My father unexpectedly and tragically died, and that, I think, shaped something in me to go and try and help those that had never experienced that kind of love and care of having a mum and a dad like I had in my life. So there's maybe something in that as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that took you into charity work, didn't it?
Yeah. So I ended up moved further down the M1 away from Leeds, was in Sheffield for a bit, and then ended up in Loughborough, much to my mother's horror. She said that I was starting to lose my accent and drink shandies rather than proper pints, and ended up in and around Loughborough working on a team called Extreme Team that went into estates and worked with the most fantastic kids who were really struggling in different ways, very kind of impoverished. And that led me and a friend to say, let's do something together here. And we set up a charity to try and help a load of the lads and lasses we were meeting on a day-to-day basis, try and kind of release and realise their potential, of which there was bags of it. And we said, right, we need to get them into jobs. We need to get them to see who they're meant to be. And we created a charity to do just that.
Yeah. And that clearly was super passionate, mission driven again, and you could see the impact you were having. But sitting here now, you're the Chief Executive of the Centre for Social Justice. So tell me about the transition there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I still don't know what they were doing in employing me, to be honest. The Centre for Social Justice is a think tank that operates in Westminster. It aims to try and kind of take the experiences of those most struggling and learn from them and plot ideas to help change what they're going after. The unique thing about what it does, or what we do, should I say, is it's got a small army of charities across the country, or should I say a large army of small charities across the country, 700 of them, and regional offices that goes and listens to what they're really saying about the poorest in this country. Not what Whitehall says, not what Westminster says, not often what big charity says, but what is actually happening.
Underrepresented.
Underrepresented, but also not just the problems. I mean, goodness me, we can tell the problems till the time stands still. Actually, what are the ideas? And one of the founding principles of the CSJ was that someone is always solving these problems somewhere. Our job is to just go and find it. So whether we're in Hartlepool, whether we're in Birmingham, whether we're in Bristol or any other place beginning with a B that I can't think of now, we go and listen to what's being solved there, try and bring it back to Westminster and say, just do more of this, invest in this or learn from this in a policy shaping way. So the way I got into it is that I was one of those people doing that in an area in Leicestershire, in Loughborough, in Derbyshire, in Nottinghamshire, the charity grew. And I got in bed with the CSJ, and I kind of loved what they were trying to do, listening to real experts out there, bring it back and get it going proper.
I love that. How do you go about finding these people and that are making a difference? What's the team element of that? So there must be researchers, there must be people that are sort of sent out, if you like, to find these people.
Yeah, well, we've kind of split our employee with our organisational dynamics, but we've got the CSJ Foundation now, which has got regional offices all across the country. Now, regional offices, probably quite a kind of dramatic way to describe it. We've got a person in a region with a car and sometimes a dog, whose job it is to go out and find the best thing that no one's seen. In this country, 84% of giving goes to 4% of the charities. We're trying to burst that bubble because often the best stuff is going on locally and no one knows about it. So we've got regional guys, very simply an infrastructure, who go out and listen, find the best social entrepreneurs, find the game changers that are out there. They kind of bring it together, and we then kind of find ways to gather their evidence, gather what they're saying, gather their ideas, and we feed that into the CSJ mothership, so to speak, the policy making machine. And from there we create papers and ideas, and we lobby government to try and enact them.
So let's take the recent Lost Boys report. Phenomenal. It's the almost zeitgeist timing with Sir Gareth Southgate's Dimbleby Talk and Adolescence, the Netflix fiction series. But ultimately, it's got everyone talking about a clear problem with young boys not feeling included and lacking confidence, and the actual impact that's having on parents, not the connecting to their own children and to boys in society. So you put that together, you give the data and the stats, and you put that out there. What's next? What follows that?
Well, let me say where that came from first, because that is such a good example. You're such a good host finding those examples, but a great example of something that worked really well. Our small charities for ages were saying, why is no one talking about boys? The biggest issue we're seeing coming through in the employment charities that we have, the education charities, where kids are out of school in record numbers, absent from school in record numbers, were coming to us saying we've got a problem with boys. Every time we hear the politicians talk about it, or big new strategies, the strategies for women and girls. Quite rightly, I've got 3 daughters, I'll get mullered if I get home and say that's not important. It totally is. But where is the stuff for boys? And our small charities are the ones telling us that in lots of ways. We listened to them, we heard it from enough people, we said we should look into this. So what we decided to do was bring all of the data, let's crunch numbers and genuinely put it out there for conversation about what is happening to our boys. And that was on behalf of these 700 small charities that we feel that we try and work for. So that's how it kind of started from our kind of point of view. And then absolutely Gareth is amazing, did this amazing speech on it. And then Adolescence came to town. So it kind of kept the momentum. We'd like to claim all of it, but we can't possibly.
No, but crucially, Gareth came to you before he did the talk because he knew you had the information. So he can actually factually base his powerful talk on information that you collected.
Well, that was quite good. Yeah, we worked with lots of different people, and Lawrence Delalio was kind enough to kind of make the introduction. It was quite funny because I've been mistaken for Gareth Southgate in certain smoking areas of pubs in my history, so it's quite nice working with my doppelganger. But he's gone out and kind of driven it forward in that way, and we did very little in reality other than kind of offered up what we were learning, and he went and actually was very brave in some of the things we were saying in that way. So that has just been fantastic. But as ever, the job, you ask about the kind of impact, it's been great to open up a conversation, and I can't tell you the amount of letters that we've had and all that, for people saying thank you. But for us, we're not interested in just creating a conversation, it's about impact. The whole organisation, I get analysed kind of every quarter. I go to my board on how much impact, legislative change or policy change, have we made as an organisation. That's what we're about in that way. So in a way, the job is not even 10% done yet. It's about now finding the ideas and driving them forward, getting people to kind of take hold of them, both in politics as well as in culture and in business. And that's what we're focusing on for the next years, not for the next few months in that way. And we're kind of, this is the actual hard yards. Everyone can show where there's a problem, but how do we bring people together to drive the solution? And honestly, I don't have the answers on that yet, but all I know is that there's some really exciting stuff happening.
No, and I get that because that's in play. So actually now that's really interesting to know how you're so accountable, those quarterly kind of targets, reviews, if you like. So do you have tangible kind of examples, if you like, where you can see the CSJ and your team have made a difference, where you've identified and researched something that was clearly of interest that you wanted to change, and then you can see the changes?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's loads of them. We average about a third of our ideas year in, year out get taken up by government. And then if government leans into something, a whole market area opens, investment goes, philanthropy happens, charities start working.
So it's super powerful.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah,
you're making it visible. So you're effectively teeing it up.
Yeah.
Gareth is a good example. Back to Nosmus. So you provide information, but then he can have the whole audience of the country, if you like, listening to stats and information.
Totally. And, our primary target is government in that way, and they can certainly shift a dial. And so there's been some amazing things done over the years. The modern slavery bill came through the CSJ. That all came from small charities saying, why aren't you doing anything on modern slavery? It was well before my time. I can take no credit for that in any way.
That was 2015?
Yeah, under Theresa May, and she really drove that forward. There's a whole big swathe of work called Housing First, which has been piloted in Manchester, Liverpool and Birmingham, which all came from, again, small charities saying we've got no proper offer for those that are homeless, in kind of changing the dial of giving them a house first, hence Housing First, rather than making them prove that they're house ready. That's now, we won 28 million to pilot that in 3 different areas. It's now coming to the end of the pilot, and we're making a big case with people like Andy Burnham in Manchester for national rollout. So there's real tangible policy stuff for those that are most struggling. I would say another area that we've worked heavily on, but nowhere near kind of solving yet, is this whole thing of ghost children. We were the first to identify the amount of young people dropping off the school roll, again through our small charities, saying no one's talking about this. Was post-pandemic, that pre-pandemic there was about 60,000 kids that were out of school more than they're in it. We're now at 173,000. This thing is getting worse and worse and worse. And so again, I'm offering that up as we have constantly risen the public knowledge of that, the political knowledge, but as yet we've not driven through the solutions. And that's the type of stuff that keeps me up at night, because that's what we're there to do.
Yeah, that's powerful. Do you know the root cause of why so many children are not turning up?
There's lots of different reasons that we're seeing. One of the fascinating things that some other group did, that some amazing work on, is seeing that 3 in 10 parents now no longer see full-time school as absolutely necessary, which is a really interesting culture shift, no doubt, which was exacerbated massively by the pandemic and by the strikes after that, whereby people thought, hang on, schools can just close willy-nilly like this. And the students saw that, and did we cope all right when they were off? The answer to that, and the poorest, was an absolute firm no. But for Middle England, it might have been, all right, it's quite nice this way, I sit in my garden, my kids are around. But in lots of other ways, it was devastating to young people, devastating. And so there's a culture shift in the mindset, I think. There's definitely then loads towards young people's, their mental health, people going out into school and all the rest. So there's something really quite deep going on there, as well as something that needs to shift practically.
I've got so much going on in my head there about, even as a parent myself, and you start questioning what is and isn't being taught in schools, but you still know that in your heart that children have to have discipline and go to school to be educated. I suppose there's a whole other conversation of, should they still be learning to use a Bunsen burner and learn algebra when they could be learning all sorts of other things in real life?
Bunsen burner. How else would you be able to do some of the games that you used to do back
Exactly.
in the day?
I love that. That's a whole conundrum. There must be so much that you get involved in. Is there one particular thing, whether it's close to the CSJ's heart or yours, where you see a real crisis? So my point being, you have a whole hopper being fed of, I think you described it as the sort of 20% of society that's not catered for, not looked after, and is underprivileged. Is there one key area where you're like, this just absolutely has to change? This is no longer sustainable?
Can I have 2?
Yeah.
Family and work have always been some of the 2 main things going on. And I would say the thing that came out about the Lost Boys, which we're trying to figure out how we bottom out, is the fatherlessness that's happening in this nation right now. 2.5 million young people without fathers in and around them. That's a really interestingly scary stat. That's personal to me in that way.
I can feel that from you, yeah.
Knowing how big that is. And this isn't about demonizing anyone. It's actually, in fact, the amount of mums we've had write to us to say, yes, this is such a big thing for us. That, and I don't know what a lot of the answers are there, but there's something about mentorship, something about significant adult that young people are missing right now in lots of ways, I would say one. And secondly, work. I mean, again, personally, it was always drilled into us about working and about jobs and about different things. I could count you all the different jobs we did, right from being nippers in that way. But something about the discipline of work, about that first pint on a Friday being you that's bought it in that way, something that's about dignity of work. And right now we've got, 2,000 people a day dropping out of the labour market due to inactivity, due to sickness in that way. And yet work is such a powerful thing, and yet people are seeing some jobs that they don't want to do anymore, are being spoken about whether work's a good thing in and of itself. I think those two things are really kind of troubling us as a nation right now.
Totally. Is there also a correlation to role models? So I'm looking at you and I'm genuinely thinking you are an amazing role model. The way you're coming across, the passion you got for your work, I can tell that you love your family and they are your heart. But then you go out to try and achieve everything you're doing with the CSJ to make that difference and that impact. So to come back to that whole role model scenario, people in the workplace and people, if you like, on social media and putting messages out there from a family point of view. Has that all gone wrong? Because we've had Andrew Tate over the last few years creating a culture where he's putting out an awful message in a very cool way that's influenced the boys. Where do we get back some influence on role models that puts back that dignity, that pride into actually being a boy, being a girl, and championing the people that really should be?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's ever been the case. Remember back in the day, when you and I were growing up pre-war, the big argument would have been our role models are footballers who are all going out getting smashed and not particularly healthy role models, perhaps. That's come full circle and been smart. So there'll always be public problems in who the role models are, without a doubt. But there's been definitely, I think, a change of local role models, because those touch points locally, we've decimated youth clubs, we've decimated over the last number of years. The kind of, you used to have church groups, and up where I'm from, you'd have kind of union groups and bands and those kind of things. These areas of communal gathering where lots of different people would be in, sports teams and all the rest, have been decimated in lots of ways. So you'll always have the top level role models, absolutely. And I think in a funny way, the footballers have come full circle now and they're kind of seen as fairly healthy ones to go and have a look. But I would say it's more about localised ones. I remember for me, Kev Pease, who was a plumber, a local lad who I used to play football, and he was in this I just looked to him and he gave me some work experience with him. He did all of that. And I wanted to please him. I wanted to impress him. I wanted to learn from him. We used to go and watch Leeds United together. People like that I wouldn't have ever met him if it wasn't for the kind of church group I was in or football team I was playing for. I think we've decimated something of our community foundations in that way. And I think the best way to get that back, get the youth workers back out there again, get the kind of sport out there again, such a powerful tool that we never use properly in this country. We could absolutely drive this into areas and get people playing in, just learning the discipline of sport, but meeting older people who are good people to follow. So I totally believe in role models, but I think it's local role models we need.
Real life, real people.
Proper people.
And I know that we were talking about some awards that you have in October, and you go out of your way to try and find the sort of trailblazing, mission-led entrepreneurs that are making a positive social impact, and you've never heard of them.
Totally.
Role models.
Role models. And do you know what? This is one of the best things we do, totally and utterly. It's how I got involved in the CSJ, and it's been running for 20 years. When it was founded by Ian Duncan Smith, the whole central point of it was to go and find the people that are solving problems and go to small charities, the kind of little platoons that are out there. Every year we find the best ones that we've seen across that year. We do a whole judging process and we take them down to Westminster. I remember it well. I put on my pinstripe suit and a splash of Brut Aquatonic, and you get onto the main stage and we give them some money, we listen to their story, we have the good and great gathered there from the political media and a few decent celebrities there, and we say these are the heroes. And do you know what it does? It finds role models, absolutely, but also instills hope. Do you know what? Someone is solving these problems somewhere. Every time you turn on the blooming radio, or if you still turn on the radio, it's all about the that's there, of which there's a lot. But I tell you what, there's a lot more hope out there, and it's found in these little guys. And these guys that have never put their head up because they're in Blackpool running youth centres, or they're in Newcastle working on a football project. We go and find them and we try and lift them up.
This is awesome. And you, again, that energy coming from you is so strong, the passion. And I've met a lot of your team as well, and I've felt that. In context of social media, there's an element there that can be used as a force for good, or it can be a very destructive energy, if you like, and can give the wrong information to people that then sort of doom scroll, addictive algorithms. Is there anything the CSJ is doing there to try and research and help? Because that's a massive conversation among parents, colleagues.
Yeah.
Just wonder where that sits.
Yeah, huge. We did a huge report on mental health, interestingly, and the mobile phone things comes up massively about, and social media in that sphere, actually, about how significant that is to young people. We've looked a bit on how, again, on the over medicalisation is the term that's used of some of those issues versus the kind of these kind of gifts that people have been given. How do we draw out the gold in people rather than kind of stop all we see it as stopping something in that sense. And on the mobile front, absolutely, we're going to have to learn how to bring the best out of that stuff and protect where we need to protect at the same time. So we've done some big papers on that, because that is a lot of the stuff that people talk about. But interestingly, for our small charities, they'll talk about it as the more personalised side. So if all the social media and the looking at screens is happening there, we should double down on what the personal side is going on. Where's the sport going on? Where's the activities? Is school an engaging place and a fun place for people? So we try to look at that stuff as much as anything else.
Are there any kind of blockages or challenges that you've got? Because it feels like you've got the support of the government, and you have that reach into different pockets where you need to, and then you're going out and hunting the opportunities that need addressing. And so, is there any blockages where, for example, you have any resistance from governing bodies or companies, if you like, giving information, and why?
Yeah, well, I was very kindly saying we have the support of government. We wish we had more support. There's two things in this world that you don't want to know how they're made. One is sausages and one is laws. And half the time we're trying to help make these laws, and it's just carnage all over the place because it's politics and it's policy. So we always want more ideas out there to try and shape what they're doing, more contacts into there to drive it forward, and more ability to kind of get it into public domain so that politicians react.
Is that the way you get traction? So you need to send it into the public domain that forces government?
Yeah, there's both happen. Sometimes you force government that way because they think, oh, they're all going this way, so we'll go that way. Other times you're working behind the scenes and say, hey, you need to do this for whatever reason. So we do it both kind of.
That's fascinating, isn't it? Because there's certain times where I guess you make enough noise, they can't ignore it. There's other times where you're like, we don't even want them. It's not going to look good on you if there's a load of noise here when we need to change this now.
Totally. And actually, often that's what I would say as well. Some people will do campaigns in order to be seen that they are doing campaigns, when actually the most impactful thing you can do is work with someone behind the scenes. And don't get me wrong, every now and again we press the button to make a big story because you need to shift something and get people thinking a different way. But that's not all the time that we do it. Try and work with people, try and alongside people in that sense. So yeah, we'll do both.
Talking about Andy, yourself, so humanizing you, you've got an amazing team, you've got your family, but you have clearly got huge energy for this. What do you do to get away from clearly a very consuming role where you're getting a huge amount of information as well and you're trying to make that impact? What do you do to make time for yourself?
I go and watch Leeds United and normally bang my head against a brick wall.
Hence you buzzing right now.
Yeah,
you're literally beaming.
I've never been so happy. No, I do, yeah. I don't know. It doesn't stop in you. Of course you need to look after yourself, but it doesn't stop. You asked me at the start, who I am. I want to make it count. So I find the minute you stop, the minute the best ideas come as well, interestingly. And so it's always on, because this is more than just a 9-to-5 job. It's far more than that. And that's for all of us. We employ people at the CSJ who often have gone and lived a real life and done interesting things, because it drives you a bit further and a bit deeper in that way. But for me, yeah, it's going out and spending time at the local Whistler pub with great play park. It's watching my girls do what they do, and it's watching Leeds.
Brings it back to family and community, which is actually that what you're trying to influence for the better, and that's also what really helps shape you. So you're clearly on a journey. I don't feel like there's necessarily a destination that you want to get to, but are there anything that you would love, is there anything you'd like to achieve or make happen or influence for the better whilst you're the chief exec of the CSJ?
Of course, there's 100 policy areas I want to change. I want to see more people out there working in good jobs and finding themselves that way. I want to see more families strong. I could reel off countless policy areas genuinely, and they'll always incrementally change lives. There won't ever be a kind of silver bullet that changes everything. If there's something that I would love to see shift massively, it's how people see the small voluntary sector. I honestly think if we get that infrastructure right, it can change a whole host of things. And how we find localized, we engineer localized support to go into kind of meaningful things. The big boys dominate everything on PR, on comms, therefore on finance. And I'm not saying they're not doing a good job. I'm not. There's some really interesting. But I think people that you know, people that I know who are looking to give away money to use their brands or use their companies, I want to try and link them to the stuff that never gets a look in. And that's what I'd love to see shift.
How can anyone watching or listening that's now wanting to get involved and help, what can they do?
Firstly, I'd say that I realise how hard it is for people to know what is going on around them. But I would say first thing they can do is just stop and if they want to do something, have a little think about what might be more localized versus what's kind of the well-worn path. And that's where we can genuinely come in and help. If they want to give money to a cause, we can help find them some really localized causes, somewhere where they grew up or they have an affinity to, or some causes that are way off the beaten track, where their pennies will go a lot further than if it's into a big infrastructure. You know, I used the stat before that 84% of giving goes to just 4% of the causes. Why? Because it's easy in that way. Well, we can do the hard work in finding them local groups and local areas. And so come and see us, and we'd love to help them in that sense.
That's brilliant. And if someone's watching or listening and is in a position where they can contribute, they want to be able to help support you financially, what's the process? What can they do?
Well, again, you can go on our website, we can get in contact and we can talk to them. Again, lots of people are often looking for really cool stuff to find, and we've got them in their droves. We've got great people where we can create lists and ideas and do visits and all the rest, as much or as little as people want, and try and connect them with people that are crying out for not just money, by the way, not just wallets, but their ideas. People have often made money because they're bright and they're brilliant. And half the time I'm wanting to learn from those kind of extraordinary people and to help shape the way an organization runs. So we love to connect people's wallets to people, but their brains as well.
Inspirational. I told you I was looking forward to this conversation. I don't want it to end, but you're a pleasure to talk with, and what you're doing is just so important. Andy, thank you.
Thank you.